Rich Cowboy falls asleep and discovers an amazing secret from Maid that transforms everything. Jace McAllister lay on the grass outside his sprawling Texas ranch, the weight of his world pressing hard against his chest. With the evening stars overhead shimmering like diamonds scattered across black velvet, he felt the loneliness seep into his bones. He had all the riches one could accumulate: money, land, cattle, but as he drifted in his sleep, a gnawing emptiness whispered to him, each tick of time echoing the expectations of his legacy. What was the point of it all if no one shared it with him? It had been a grueling day, wrestling cattle and mending fences, and yet the satisfaction of a hard day's work was lost on him. His father's ghost loomed large in the background, demanding he uphold a legacy that felt more like a prison than a promise. The ranch, once echoing with laughter and love, now felt like a gilded cage. Who could he trust? Who would genuinely care for him? As he edged from wakefulness to slumber, a nagging fear gripped his heart. Would he ever escape the gilded expectations tied to his name? In this liminal space between dreams and reality, Jace found himself in a surreal meadow infused with warmth and starlight. The silhouette of Clara, the quiet maid who had been part of the household for years, appeared beside him. He blinked and questioned whether the image was real, her gentle smile slicing through his fog. She began to speak, her voice soft yet resonant, recounting tales of his ancestors, imparting wisdom that seemed to breathe life into the empty ranch. Your great-grandfather fought tooth and nail to build this place, Jace, Clara whispered. He didn't just plant trees and fences. He planted hope and strength. This land is enriched with stories of resilience. With each word, Jace felt the burden of his privilege, a feeling akin to guilt weighed heavy on his soul. He had inherited the fruits of their labor, but had he earned any of it? Did he truly understand the depth of the legacy waiting to be honored? But the longer their conversation stretched, the more tangled his emotions became. Clara's down-to-earth perspective illuminated the simple truths he had overlooked. His mind twisted in knots as the contrasting values of their worlds crashed together. A friendship started to bloom, yet Jace could not shake the feeling that their worlds were too disparate, that to embrace this connection would shatter the carefully curated image of who he was supposed to be. Could he allow himself to feel, to hope, to connect? Or was he destined to uphold a facade of opulence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just as these revelations began to thread themselves into the fabric of his heart, a crisis surged forth like wildfire. The cattle were falling sick, and whispers of scandal rippled through the townsfolk, threatening the McAllister name. Fear gripped him. Would he choose to protect his family's reputation, keep the status quo intact, or would he dare to redefine his legacy, embracing the values Clara epitomized? Torn between the empty promises of aristocracy and the promise of genuine connection, Jace stood at a precipice. As anxiety clawed at his insides, he found himself longing for Clara, craving her insight, her unwavering belief in the virtues he was beginning to question. For the first time in years, he felt the stirrings of purpose gaining strength within him. The air grew thick, the line between what was traditionally expected and what Jace truly desired becoming almost unbearable. The ranch was under siege, and in that tempest of confusion, only Clara's steady reassurance seemed to hold any weight. As he faced the choices ahead, the wild pulse of uncertainty pushed him to the brink. Would he carry on living in a gilded shell, or dare to step into the unknown with Clara as his guide? Inside him, echoes of courage began to rise, a notion that perhaps it was time to confront the darkness of his inheritance. But in that moment of revelation, a storm of emotions swirled inside him. leaving him wondering. Would he take that leap of faith or retreat into the suffocating comfort of his privileged past? Jace awoke abruptly, heart racing, consciousness returning like a scrambled signal. Though the vision of Clara had felt surreal, it bore the weight of profound truth. He sat up, the Texas dawn spilling golden light across the vast expanse of his land. Yet even the brightening sky could not dispel the shadows formed by his mounting dread. Cattle illness, a tarnished reputation, these were not mere inconveniences. They threatened the very fabric of his identity. As Jay stood, he felt the grass squish beneath his boots, alive underfoot, yet starkly juxtaposed against the inner turmoil gnawing at him. The ranch now felt like a battlefield, both for his family name and for the man he was becoming. He stepped inside, with the aroma of breakfast wafted through the halls, a contradiction to the chaos swirling in his mind. Clara was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, her focus unwavering. A knot tightened in his chest, her simple presence was a balm in these troubled hours. "Good morning, Mr. McAllister," she said, her eyes lighting up the room. "Clara," he clutched the counter to stabilize himself. "There's a crisis brewing with the cattle. I need your help." At his words, her demeanor shifted, subtle but profound. "What do you need me to do?" she asked without flinching, waiting for him to articulate his vulnerability and uncertainty. He took a deep breath. "I don't want to just fix this. I want to understand what's going on, why it's happening. It's not just about protecting the McAllister name anymore. I need to do right by the ranch and its history. I want it to mean something." A simple nod followed Clara's acknowledgement of his resolve, and together they gathered the scattered tools of Jace's life, a pen, paper, a stack of medical references. He felt the tension lift slightly as they strategized, formulating an action plan that was grounded in reality rather than prestige. "Let us start with the vet," Clara suggested, her eyes firm and sure. "They might have insights into what's causing the illness. We can't just wait for it to spread further." As they worked, Jace observed her closely. Clara pored over documents and media reports, her intelligence shining through each line of text she read. He was amazed to realize how much he had underestimated her. Each fragment of knowledge she shared chipped away at the walls he had built around himself. In her struggle for clarity, he saw a reflection of his own. Jace faced the door, contemplating his next move. They could operate under the guise of finesse, the refined McAllister way. But something deeper thundered within him, pushing against the armor of arrogance he was so accustomed to don. What if they brought the townsfolk into this? What if they opened the ranch to their scrutiny, sought help rather than shielded it? Could they redefine what it meant to be a McAllister, distancing themselves from the shroud of arrogance and generational ties? The burgeoning idea filled him with a sense of purpose that made the past's expectations seem trivial by comparison. "Clara," he said, turning back to her, "I think it's time to bring everyone together. We need transparency. It's only fair to the ranch, to the people who depend on it, and to ourselves." A look of surprise crossed her face, soon replaced with determination. "You really want to do this?" "Yes," he declared, the gravity of the moment anchoring him in place. "I want to start rebuilding not just this ranch, but also what it means to be part of this community. It's not just my burden to bear anymore." As they prepared for the first steps of change, Jace felt an unfamiliar thrill pulse through him. He had made a choice, an active, defiant choice away from the path set by tradition, stepping down the long and uncertain road of renewal. Clarity sparked inside him like a long-dormant flame. Yet, in the depths of that resolve, a new fear arose. What if the townsfolk resisted this radical openness? What if they were unwilling to trust him after years of his family's autocratic rule? Clenching his fists, Jace steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. It was not merely about the cattle. It was a matter of confronting himself, facing the man he had become. As he prepared to engage with the townsfolk, a deeper truth loomed. What awaited him in that meeting would ultimately define his legacy, his identity, and his future. But the question remained, would he succeed in reshaping who he was destined to be, or would he falter before the oncoming storm of uncertainty? The meeting was set for that evening, and as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting long shadows across the ranch, Jace felt an insatiable urge to flee. He paced restlessly on the porch, every creak of the wood mirroring the unease tightening in his gut. Stripped of the armor of privilege, he was now exposed, vulnerable and uncharacteristic state for a McAllister. As Clara emerged from the house, her silhouette outlined against the fading light, she approached him with an unwavering steadiness. "You're going to be fine," she said softly. "You're doing the right thing." He turned to face her, searching for reassurance in her eyes, but finding only a calm certainty that unsettled him further. "Am I really? Do you honestly believe they'll accept this? After how my family has treated them?" Clara tilted her head, challenging him silently. "You're not your family. That's what matters." Her words stirred something deep within him. It forced a confrontation with the lingering belief that he was chained to his legacy, unable to sever those ties. "But I've lived under their expectations my whole life. How do I navigate this new path?" As the first townsfolk began to arrive, Jace's stomach twisted. Each face brought back memories of whispered criticisms, hidden disdain. They'd known him as the arrogant heir, the untouchable McAllister who held his community at arm's length. Now he was exposing his vulnerabilities, stepping onto a battlefield where he had previously wielded power without even acknowledgement of their struggles. The room darkened as he stepped inside to face a gathering of skeptical eyes and crossed arms. Jace cleared his throat, silence swallowing his ability to speak. "Thank you for coming," he began, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on him. "I know many of you have doubts about me, about this ranch, and about what my family has done." A rustle spread through the crowd. They were equal parts curious and cautious. This confession was rare. "But tonight, I stand here not just as a McAllister, but as a man seeking to understand the gravity of the situation. The cattle are unwell, and we might not be able to fix it without strength in numbers." Jace's heart raced, yet this newfound honesty simmered in him, empowering his next words. "We cannot mask the illness of our cattle or the malaise of our community. Transparency is crucial, and I need your help to understand and heal this ranch from within." A wiry man in the back scoffed. "You think we'll just trust you after all your family has done?" The tension hung thick in the air, but Jace's conviction grew stronger. "You don't have to trust me now, but know that if we work together, I'm committed to restoring what we have lost. For the ranch, for our livelihoods, and for the honor of our history." Clara's supportive gaze built his confidence as murmurs rippled through the crowd. He realized that this was more than a meeting. It was an act of reclaiming ownership over his identity. He felt the tightness in his chest loosening. The more he revealed, the more he found clarity in what he represented. A few hands raised tentatively, questions surfacing. He answered each one with sincerity, his initial fears replaced by a burgeoning resolve. At that moment, he grasped the opportunity to redirect his life, stepping out of his family's shadow and crafting his own path. By the time the final question was addressed, Jace's confidence surged. Responses shifted from skepticism to genuine curiosity. The townsfolk were engaging, sharing insights born from years of experience. It struck him that their knowledge, a wellspring of wisdom far deeper than he imagined, could be the antidote to all he feared. Yet, as the evening came to a close and goodbyes were exchanged, one lingering thought sunk into his consciousness. What unforeseen complications would arise from reestablishing trust with those he had long alienated? There was a fragile hope blossoming between them, but also a cloud of uncertainty shadowing the promise of renewed community ties. He had taken a monumental step. Now the test awaited him. Would the roots of his family's legacy suffocate his ambition, or would he nurture a new breed of collaboration that could transform everything he once felt constrained by? As he stepped outside to greet the cool evening air, the weight of the world seemed to press down again. Faced with the uncertainty of what might come next and the opportunity that lay ahead, he knew one thing. True change demanded further confrontation. And soon, he'd have to make one choice that could either unlock his potential or lock him back into the familial chains he had fought so hard to break. The morning sun crept into Jace's room like a timid visitor, its golden light barely managing to pierce through the curtains. He lay in bed, still reeling from the prior night's meeting, thoughts swirling chaotically around what had transpired. A night that had begun with trepidation had transformed into something surprisingly invigorating. He had to remind himself that this was only the first step down a long, winding road of transformation. Yet, doubts clouded his clarity. Was it merely a flicker of courage, a candle flame flickering against a strong draft? Or was this the persistent pulse of potential that could truly reshape his reality? Jace pulled himself upright, staring at his reflection in the mirror as if scrutinizing a stranger. The man looking back was not entirely the same person who had forfeited agency to his family legacy. Instead, he saw a man confronting the choice to evolve. Determined, he slipped into his boots and made his way outside, inhaling deeply the brisk morning air infused with the scent of earth and grass. The ranch sprawled before him, a living testament to both his heritage and the pressing challenges that lay ahead. It was easy to see how the land reflected the turmoil he felt within. Barren patches of earth bore witness to neglect, just as his own life bore the marks of unfulfilled potential. Without a clear plan, Jace ventured into the fields, ready to face the tangible issues of the ranch. He spotted the herd in the distance, their weary eyes mirroring his fatigue. As he approached them, he realized that for every cattle in distress, there was a potential solution waiting to be identified. Observing their plight, he contemplated how his upbringing had shielded him from such realities. The thought irked him. He had been blind to the depth of the struggles faced by every rancher reliant on this land. His internal dialogue shifted as he recalled Clara's admonition. The vulnerability she had encouraged began to embed itself into his psyche like a stubborn seed. What if the very act of confronting the turmoil on the ranch could likewise tackle the turmoil within himself? If transparency wasn't merely a tool for collaboration, but a means to connect deeply with his own identity, wasn't it worthy of exploration? Among the herd, a peculiar sight caught his attention. A young calf strayed from its mother, searching for comfort and nourishment. Jace crouched, a sudden instinct compelling him forward. For a brief moment, all the noise in his mind dulled as he focused solely on this creature's plight. The helplessness resonated. He had often felt similarly lost and abandoned. It occurred to him that every detachment mirrored his estrangement from the community that once respected him. His heart raced not out of fear, but with another realization. He had something to offer that transcended the facade of wealth and status. He could extend his vulnerability to become a bridge across the growing chasms of mistrust. Jace rose to his feet, invigorated by this simple act of connection, as if the calf's search for belonging had sparked something nascent within him. Determined to act, he walked back to the barn, filled with plans for nurturing the ranch's essence and establishing dialogues that echoed the revelations he had that morning. Each step felt lighter, driven by the love for the land that had shaped him, but was never fully known. As he stepped inside, Clara's silhouette greeted him, framed against the entrance. She seemed to sense the energy radiating from him. "You look different," she remarked, curiosity lacing her tone. "Maybe I am," Jace replied, a spark of mischief glinting in his eyes. "But it will take more than a fresh resolve to mend what's broken. We need a strategy, and I need your help. What do you have in mind?" Clara's expression shifted an intriguing glint reflecting in her smile. As he laid out his plans, the stakes began to rise, and the complexity of their approach began to materialize. Each decision intertwined with an intricate balance of vulnerability and assertiveness, testing every fiber of his resolve. But as he spoke, an alarming thought struck him. While unearthing solutions, what parts of his own identity would he be forced to confront? Would he uncover masks that needed to be torn off in pursuit of genuine transformation? With the burgeoning weight of those questions, Jace realized he was standing on the precipice of not just professional upheaval, but deeply personal fallout. The challenge ahead was greater than the ranch's restoration. It was a confrontation with everything he had previously avoided about himself. And just then, a knock echoed through the barn, pulling him from his thoughts. "Jace, you need to see this," Clara called, urgency flashing in her eyes. Heart pounding, he followed her outside, unaware of the chaos waiting just beyond the door, an unforeseen change that could either bolster his newfound resolve or unravel the threads of his ambitions altogether. Jace stepped outside, his confidence riding high on the coattails of clarity and purpose. Yet as he followed Clara down the dusty path, a flicker of trepidation settled in his gut, the kind that often comes before a storm. The sun hung high in the sky, but dark clouds loomed on the edge, reminding him that the internal conflicts he'd unearthed had yet to be resolved. "Over here," Clara said, urgency painting her tone. She led him toward a cluster of trees that bordered the eastern side of the ranch. Jace's heart quickened, an instinctive awareness warning him that whatever awaited them would be more than just a simple observation. As they reached the trees, Clara halted abruptly, her gaze fixating on the trembling form of a horse, its chestnut coat glistening with sweat, reins dragging loosely beside it. But it was not just the horse that caught Jace's attention. Nearby lay a small, damaged fence panel, splintered and bent. Instantly, he recognized the significance. The strength of barriers, both physical and emotional, could crumble unexpectedly under pressure. "What happened?" he asked, his voice steady despite the rising storm in his chest. "It's one of the new horses. The herd got spooked during last night's thunderstorm. I think it broke through here," Clara replied, her brow knitted with concern. An instinctual surge of responsibility curled within him. This was his domain, and a chaotic herd meant the stakes had just risen dramatically. "We need to get it back to the barn before it wanders off too far," he asserted, the words tumbling out as if he had rehearsed them. "Do you think you can handle it?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Of course. I've handled worse," he said with a bravado he didn't entirely feel. This was his opportunity not just to reclaim some semblance of control over the ranch, but to affirm his evolution as someone who could shoulder his growing responsibilities. With Clara as cautious assistance, they approached the frightened animal. Jace extended his hand slowly, a soft, steady voice soothing the creature as he knelt close. "Easy there. You're safe now," he murmured, remembering Clara's words about vulnerability, how it wasn't just about revealing weakness, but embracing understanding. As the horse's racing heart began to calm, Jace's own anxiety began to dissipate. Perhaps this was the true challenge, facing the chaos head-on. He focused on the connection, channeling his earlier revelations from the calf. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was a conduit for empathy, a bridge toward mutual trust. "You've got this," Clara encouraged, watching with anticipation. Patience guided his hands as he slipped the reins over the horse's head. As the tension released, he experienced a visceral sense of accomplishment. This singular moment extended beyond the troubled creature before him, encapsulating the emotional labor required to reclaim his identity from the regressive patterns instilled by his family's legacy. "I think I'm learning something here," he said, allowing a smile to creep across his face. Clara returned the expression, mirroring his realization that every challenge was inextricably linked to his journey of self-discovery. Yet, just as Jace felt assuaged by his small triumph, another noise echoed in the background, a sharp cry slicing through the air. Jace's eyes snapped toward the other end of the corral, where another unexpected commotion unfolded. "What in the world?" Clara exclaimed, her voice tinged with worry. Curiosity tugged at him, igniting apprehension like a flame beneath his skin. He released his hold on the horse and turned sharply to follow the sound, adrenaline rushing through his veins. The sight that greeted him was a group of ranch workers gathered in a tight circle, their faces etched with alarm. They parted just enough for him to glimpse the cause of the disturbance. An injured cow lay on the ground, the tension in the air palpable as the workers debated what to do. Caught between elation from his success and the gnawing tension tightening in his gut, Jace felt the stakes rise once more. This was more than just a physical emergency. It was a test of his ability to lead, to draw from the bravery he had just discovered within himself. Suddenly, he was thrust into the role he needed to embrace, challenging all his fears in a way he'd never anticipated. Clara's hand grazed his back, a reassuring presence amid chaos. "You can do this, Jace. This is your chance to show what you're made of," she whispered, steadying his racing heart. In that fleeting moment, he understood. The real transformation did not merely come from overcoming external challenges. It stemmed from each embrace of discomfort, from each choice to rise amid adversity. Whatever unfolded next would demand every ounce of resolve he could muster. The whispers of self-doubt crept, and what if they saw him fail? What if he couldn't rally them the way a true leader should? But before he could spiral, he squared his shoulders and took a deep breath, ready to confront the moment that lay ahead. "Let us get to work," he said, his voice louder now, issued with determination. The moment had arrived to test everything he was beginning to understand about himself. Yet in the back of his mind lingered another question. Once he stepped into this role, would he be able to reclaim the power that comes from vulnerability, one that could bridge not just the gaps on the ranch, but those within his own fractured identity? As he moved forward, he knew that the next moment would reshape everything, for better or worse. Jace stepped forward, heart pounding with the weight of scrutiny laid upon him by the gathered workers. The injured cow lay gasping, its body immobilized by pain. The gravity of the situation anchored him, and he could feel the expectations from the close-knit team surging around him like a palpable current. Clara's encouragement echoed in his mind, stoking his embers of resolve. Making eye contact with the ranch hands, he met their worried expressions head-on. He sensed their doubt, the specter of uncertainty lingering just beneath the surface, and it urged him to action. He took a deep breath, clearing his mind. They needed a plan, a decisive action that would not only address the immediate crisis, but also solidify his emerging role. "Okay, everyone," he began, channeling authority he didn't entirely feel. "We need to assess the situation first. Can someone check if the cow can stand? We have to determine if it's a simple injury or something more severe." His words hung for a moment, the silence amplifying the gravity of his command. One of the workers, Thomas, gave a hesitant nod. "I can do that." He moved closer, but Jace could see the tension in his muscles. "Be calm and move slowly," Jace advised, drawing for what he had learned with the horse. "Animals sans affaire." As Thomas approached the cow, Jace felt a surge of empathy. He was not merely leading others. He was drawing upon a shared understanding, a bond forged in their unique struggles with fear and duty. As the team continued to investigate the cow's condition, Jace's mind raced. He reminded himself that this moment was about connection not just to the animal, but to his colleagues. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was a flicker of doubt. What if the workers viewed him as incompetent? What if he couldn't reach the decision needed to save this cow? Thomas gently touched the cow's side, muttering reassurances under his breath. "It looks like a sprain," he called back, relief lining his voice. "Might just need rest." The workers exchanged glances, their expressions shifting. Jace seized this opportunity. "Great news. Let us create a makeshift pen so we can keep her isolated and calm. Thomas, can you rally some folks to gather feed and water? The rest of us will work on the pen." As they leaped into action, Jace remained at the forefront, guiding them through the process. With each passing moment, he could feel a change within himself. Decision-making mattered. Roles mattered. The shift from passive bystander to acting leader began to reshape his understanding of responsibility, not merely as a burden, but as a meaningful commitment to those around him. He witnessed the camaraderie grow, the workers rallying together, sharing ideas as they built the pen. They were no longer just co-workers. They were allies, united in purpose. And within this atmosphere of collaboration, Jace's confidence burgeoned. It was exhilarating not only to lead, but to feel the support and trust of his team. His earlier assumptions about vulnerability began crystallizing into a powerful truth. Open leadership, rooted in empathy and shared experience, built stronger bonds. But just as he began to enjoy this newfound strength, a shiver of anxiety crossed his spine. What if the next crisis was even larger than this? Could he maintain this momentum in the face of greater challenges? The pen was quickly established, the cow resting inside, grateful for the respite. As the team settled around the animal, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that this particular moment was merely the foreshadowing of something more significant. He turned to Clara, who observed him from a distance, a knowing smile gracing her lips. She had seen his transformation, It was apparent in the way he commanded the situation. Yet, as he tried to address the workers and quell the remnants of panic in his chest, he overheard hushed voices nearby, speculations about whether they should call the vet. A mere whisper caught his attention. But what if there's something deeper to this injury? One worker murmured. The implication struck Jace harder than he anticipated. What if there was more going on within the dynamics of the ranch than he had realized? Just as he had begun to forge a path forward, new questions emerged, questions that hinted at deeper truths within his personal journey and the ranch itself. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, shadows stretched across the ground, engulfing him in a quiet foreboding. It became clear that the challenges of today would spiral into the revelations of tomorrow. Jace turned toward Clara, ready to confront this unanticipated dimension of leadership and vulnerability. What is really happening here? He wondered, feeling the tension coil once more. He had opened the door to his personal growth, but was it enough to unravel the complexities that lay ahead? Would he be equipped to face the underlying struggles affecting not only him, but the entirety of the ranch? Jace stood contemplatively at the pen, the weight of unanswered questions hanging heavily in the air. As the sun continued to sink, tinging the horizon with shades of orange and purple, he felt the transformation he'd begun to experience gnaw at his core. He had asserted himself in the moment of crisis, rallying his team, earning their trust, but the unease clinging to him seemed only to deepen. He glanced at Thomas, now quietly tending to the cow with gentle hands, a clear picture of someone finding their strength through shared struggle. The workers' furtive glances hinted at uneasiness about the injury, and Jace felt it mirrored his own fears. The small victory over the cow's immediate condition seemed superficial against the backdrop of larger, looming uncertainties. What is the underlying issue? Jace mused internally, his mind racing among the possibilities. The looming financial pressures of the ranch, the shaky morale of the workers, and his own place within this intricate web of dependency and responsibility. As conversations swirled around him, the need to unify his colleagues under a shared purpose intensified. But how could he instill resilience when doubt hung like a spectral fog? A solemn atmosphere cocooned him, compelling him to dig deeper for answers that lay not just in the current crisis, but in the very ethos of the ranch itself. Jace, Clara called softly, breaking the spell. She approached, her expression serious. I've been meaning to talk to you. Sure, what is up? He suppressed a wave of dread sinking in, fearing she might reveal that even the bond they were forging was fragile. I've noticed the way you handled today, she began, her voice steady yet gentle. But there is more to what we faced than just this one cow. We have to talk about the direction of the ranch. The urgency in her tone piqued his interest. What do you mean? Is there something I should know? She cast a quick glance at the others who were now engaged in soft discussions about what they would do next, then leaned closer. We've had some financial issues, more than a few actually, and there are murmurs about making cuts and maybe even selling the ranch. Shock flooded through him. The implication of her words felt like a punch to the gut. Despite the camaraderie they had developed, the reality was distanced by a greater threat to their collective future. Selling? He echoed, struggling to grasp the gravity. But we've worked so hard to build a team, to establish something here. What about the legacy? Exactly, Clara nodded, her expression one of earnest concern. But without more funding, this may not survive. I'm fearful for you, for all of us. As those words settled into his thoughts, they shifted from an external concern to echoing their murmurs back to him. Could he really not only adapt, but actively reshape their reality? Here lay a dichotomy. Within the nature of leadership he aspired to embody. Making difficult decisions was part of leadership, he understood that. But what was he prepared to give? Holding back would mean forfeiting not just an opportunity, but the very essence of what was becoming increasingly clear. This ranch was more than a job. It was a living history. I have to do something, he said resolutely, the words emerging with a fierceness that surprised even him. I can't let that happen. We need to plan something to rally behind, a way to ensure the ranch thrives. Clara's eyes met his. And for the first time, he saw not just a coworker, but a partner in this struggle, someone willing to forge pathways into the unknown. "Then we need to talk to the others," she replied, resolve stepping in to counter their earlier doubts. Jace took a deep breath, a tide of purpose flowing through him. They moved to gather the remaining workers under the soft glow of the settling sun, his heart racing with the weight of both opportunity and fear. How do we save the ranch? How do we safeguard our future? The questions buzzed in his mind. As he looked around at the faces of his team, something clicked. This challenge was not just solely his to bear. He was no longer the passive bystander. He could influence their trajectory moving forward. But could he do it effectively without knowing every obstacle they faced? The whisper of uncertainty returned. Just as he moved to share his thoughts, a sharp cry from the pen diverted his attention. The cow was struggling, her legs thrashing, sending fresh unease rippling through Jace. It was the first real test, an urgent reminder that while they might be facing external pressures, the battles unfolding were also internal. Could his newfound understanding of empathy and leadership extend to navigating crises both mundane and profound? With that, he realized they were on the cusp of yet another pivotal moment. And as the cow struggled, it dawned on him that leadership was not merely about marching forward, it was about grappling with the deeper truths that intertwined them all. What would he uncover next as the metaphorical ground shifted beneath their feet? Would he have the strength to lead them through this turmoil, to embrace the unknown? His journey was set to deepen, drawing him further into the complexities not just of ranch life, but of his own burgeoning identity. As Jace moved decisively towards the distressed cow, a sudden surge of clarity washed over him. It was as if the chaos surrounding him sharpened his focus. He assumed his position, ready to take action. Every second counted now. "Thomas," he called, his voice cutting through the tension. The seasoned ranch hand looked up, comprehension dawning. Without hesitation, they both crouched low beside the struggling animal. Calmly and confidently, Jace began to assess the situation, leaning on the skills he had honed over the years, yet tempered by the lessons learned just hours before. The frantic movements of the cow were alarming, manifesting both pain and fear. Jace recalled Clara's concerns, the instability that haunted them all. This moment held a dual significance. It was not only a test of his emerging leadership, but also a lesson in vulnerability. How could he inspire resilience within himself and his team when faced with fear head-on? "Hold her steady," he instructed Thomas, who responded quickly, his strong but gentle hands gripping the animal's flanks. Jace felt a twinge of unease in his gut. Was he truly ready for the weight of this responsibility? He could sense the eyes of their colleagues staring intently, their hopes and fears intermingling in an invisible current. As he worked, Jace found his mind wandering back to Clara's revelation about the ranch's mounting pressures. The recurring thought struck him. Survival required not just determination, but clear strategy. He could no longer afford to dwell in the shadows of uncertainty. This was the moment to define both his role and the future of the ranch. "Can you grab that rope?" he shouted, pointing towards the supplies. In the throes of crisis, he saw something in himself, a strength that transcended mere duty. This was purpose-driven leadership, born from necessity. With the rope secured, he fashioned a quick loop around the cow's legs, stabilizing her enough to prevent further thrashing. It was more than physical restraint. It was a symbiotic dance of trust as they worked in unison. That realization crystallized in Jace's mind. Leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about the willingness to engage with complexity, to trust oneself and others in the chaos. The cow began to quiet, her energy ebbing as the team successfully worked together to soothe her distress. A collective sigh of relief washed over the group as they observed the sudden calmness, relief tempered by the weight of the unspoken fears that still loomed. But Jace understood that this was just one battle, far from the war they faced. Breathing heavily from the effort, Jace turned to the workers. "We can't afford to wait for things to get better. We need a plan," he he proclaimed, letting the conviction of his voice carry the seriousness of their situation. "I believe in what we have here. I believe in us." Their faces softened, infused with the spark of hope. "Let us meet tonight," Clara suggested, her expression purposeful. "We can brainstorm solutions, figure out what needs to change." "Absolutely," Jace responded, feeling the buoyancy of shared resolve. A grain of determination nestled itself in his chest. This was his moment, a mosaic of trust, vulnerability, and leadership crystallizing into a vision of possibility. But the uncertainty still loomed. The financial troubles hung over them like a dark cloud. What ideas could save the ranch? What sacrifices would it demand from him and his team? The complexities of his role deepened as he considered decisions that could shape not just one future, but many. As evening approached, Jace's mind raced through those uncharted roads. It was not simply about formulating plans. Every step forward was fraught with unexpected consequences, challenges that would test the very essence of his character. In the shadows of that uncertainty, he felt a deep longing for change surging through him yet again. What strategies could he suggest to save what had become so precious? The time was coming to face the question that had not only haunted him, but could potentially redefine them all. How far was he willing to go for the preservation of the ranch's legacy? The horizon, darkening with the night, held the answers if he was brave enough to reach for them. What revelation awaited him in this new chapter of leadership, requiring sacrifice and a leap into the unknown? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange hue across the ranch, Jace felt an urgency tugging at him. The weight of the evening's meeting loomed ahead. The need to unify his team behind a cohesive strategy felt like an impending storm. He had experienced moments of clarity before, but this was different. It was a call to action that resonated deeply within him. Walking towards the gathering area, he noticed Clara already setting up chairs. Her dedication was palpable, a testament to her unwavering belief in the ranch's future. Jace paused momentarily, appreciating the way she poured her heart into every inch of this place. It struck him the ranch wasn't just land and livestock. It was people, their dreams, their struggles, and their strength. "Hey, Clara," he said, trying to mask his own trepidation with a casual demeanor. "What do you think we should focus on tonight?" She looked up, her brow furrowing slightly. "I think we need to understand the core of our struggles. It's about more than just finances, it's about connection, community, and purpose." Her words ignited a spark inside him, a realization that they weren't merely facing economic challenges. They were wrestling with their mission. "Solid point," Jace replied, the gears in his mind turning rapidly. It occurred to him that if he could draw connections between their financial woes and the collective identity of his team, they could generate solutions that went beyond numbers. This was about invoking shared purpose, turning fear into determination. As the rest of the team trickled in, Jace observed their faces. Anxiety and fatigue mingled with cautious optimism. He sensed their eagerness to engage, yet hesitance lingered like fog. This was a critical moment. Jace needed not only to lead, but to inspire them to take ownership of the ranch's direction. "Everyone, thank you for coming," he began, his voice steady. "I know things are tough right now, financially and emotionally, but I believe we can turn this around if we lean on each other as strengths." Questions flickered through the crowd, unspoken doubts hanging in the air. He could see it in their expressions. Were they willing to trust him? To invest in a collective vision? "We need to identify what's working and what isn't," Jace continued, driven by a newfound determination. "We must explore innovative ideas, whether it's diversifying our crops, establishing a market presence, or even collaborations with neighboring ranches." He punctuated his points with steady eye contact, willing them to see the possibilities unfolding before them. Clara chimed in. "Also, I think we need to engage the locals more. We have a community here that wants to support us. We just got to show them how." Jace nodded, her words striking a chord. Engaging the community, emphasizing relationships, it was more than just a strategy. It was a transformation process. "Exactly," Collaborations could lead to creative solutions we haven't even thought of yet. This acknowledgement sparked discussions, ideas bouncing off one another like electricity. Hours flew by as they brainstormed in fervent discussion, fear gradually dissipating into excitement. Jace felt a surge of admiration for his team. Their insights, paired with his determination, formed the bedrock of a new vision. This wasn't simply about saving the ranch anymore, it was about elevating everyone involved. But even as the evening wound down and laughter began to resonate among them, a nagging thought pulled at Jace. What was the cost of these changes? Would the sacrifices they needed to make weigh too heavily on their shoulders? Just then, Clara pulled him aside, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jace, I have something important to discuss, something that could shift everything we've just planned." The seriousness in her tone ignited a flicker of dread in his chest. What could be so vital that it warranted this urgency? As Jace leaned in, his heart raced, wondering if this revelation would unravel the fragile hope they'd just built or lead them to a breakthrough that would change everything. In that charged moment, he recognized the intertwining paths of risk and opportunity. Would he have the fortitude to embrace the unknown, whatever it may bring? Only time would tell, but he felt a deep longing, an entrepreneurial spirit that beckoned him to examine not just this news, but the entire tableau of their future. The rush of uncertainty coursed through Jace as Clara began to explain. "I overheard some conversations among the townsfolk," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "They believe the ranch might be put up for sale and there's a buyer interested. If we're going to act, we need to move fast. The timeline is tighter than we thought." The gravity of her words hit him like a thunderclap. They had only begun to turn the tide, and now a potential sale loomed over them like a rogue wave, threatening to crash over everything they had just built. His heart raced as the implications settled in. This was no longer just about financial innovations or community engagement. They were racing against time to preserve not only their livelihoods, but the very essence of their identities as ranchers. "Then we don't have a moment to waste," Jace declared, his resolve crystallizing instantly. "We need to mobilize our action plan immediately. This isn't just about facing a crisis. This is about fighting for everything this ranch stands for." Clara met his gaze, her own fiery determination igniting. "Exactly. We need to gather as much community support as possible, show them that this ranch isn't just a business. It's a part of our history, our shared legacy." They moved quickly, rallying the workers nestled in small talk and laughter, reinvigorating them with a sense of purpose. He could feel excitement buzzing through the air, transforming trepidation into anticipation. The previous discussions had birthed ideas, but this new urgency breathed life into them. They were not just surviving, they were fighting for their future. As they hashed out logistics, Jace felt the culmination of his experiences, the sleepless nights, the internal struggles, the awakening he had undergone boiling down to this pivotal moment. No longer was he merely the McAllister heir, basking in the weight of expectation. He was now a decisive leader, confronting adversity, ready to carve a new narrative. Each voice in the room melded into an exciting symphony of solutions. They divided responsibilities, crafting outreach efforts, and highlighting the importance of community ties. Clara took charge of communicating with local press and influencers, while Jace rallied the workers to create a powerful message about the ranch's impact on their lives. In the days that followed, Jace transformed the ranch into a hive of palpable energy. They organized an open house, inviting townsfolk to witness the heart of the ranch, its history, its struggles, and its aspirations. Jace's vision became branded on every promotional flyer he crafted. But beyond the facts and figures, Jace shared intimate stories that underscored the ranch's legacy. The fears of losing a way of life were palpable, and he leaned into that vulnerability, facilitating meaningful connections. The day of the open house was electric. Townspeople gathered, their expressions ranging from skepticism to intrigue. Many had come more out of obligation than interest, yet Jace seized the opportunity to change that. He unveiled the emotional narrative behind the ranch, the generations of families who had poured their sweat and lives into its soil, reminding everyone of the stakes determining both their futures. I know many of you have doubts about whether we can save this ranch, whether I can lead, Jace asserted, looking around the now animated faces. But we're bound not just by land, but by community. We can't let this ranch slip through our fingers when it means so much to so many. By the end of the day, hands were raised, stories shared, bonds formed. Conversations ignited between neighbors, weaving tighter the fabric of a community that had long been strained. Jace felt a surge of hope swelling in his chest, the sense that he was finally becoming part of something greater. As he walked Clara to her car, the sun setting behind them, a new serenity enveloped him. "We did it," he said, a smile breaking through the tension of recent weeks. "Yes, but it's just one piece of the puzzle," she replied, her brow slightly furrowed. "We still need to assess the potential buyer's timeline and resources. If they're serious, we might have to move fast to make a deal that supports us instead of hastily selling to the highest bidder." In that moment, Jace felt expansive. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was a shared journey that encompassed the entire team, the community, and a legacy they aimed to uphold. Then let us bring everyone together again. We need a plan that not only opposes the sale, but creates strategies that ensure we thrive. Let us submit proposals. Engage the community further. Let us create something even stronger than before. As Clara drove away, Jace stood on the driveway, watching the sunset paint the skies like a canvas of hope. He realized that he had embraced vulnerability, played his role as a leader, and transformed doubt into action. He was no longer alone, but part of something alive, a collective effort toward progress that ignited in him a righteous responsibility he wanted to uphold. Each step was firmly rooted not just in tradition, but in an authentic desire for betterment. Now, he had exemplified the courage needed for redefining his legacy. He understood that true transformation arose not from erasing the past, but learning to honor it while piecing together a new future. The collective journey rekindled the spirit of resilience that was undoubtedly their birthright. As he turned toward the house, pride surged through him. Today was not merely a series of events. It marked the turning point of not just a ranch, but one man's resolve to embrace his purpose, leaving shadows of lineage behind. But the path was still fraught with challenges, and he couldn't let complacency slip through the cracks. If they were to face the buyer, they needed to embody unity and reprioritize clarity. The countdown had begun. He would not wait for the future. He would become its architect. And so, determined, Jace stepped back inside, where the legacy he had once tried to escape now gleamed with possibility. He had risen from the shadows of his past and into the vibrant light of redemption. Every last detail of his journey remained aligned with the unyielding truth that overcoming might not mean abandoning heritage, but weaving it into a vibrant tapestry of renewal. Now was the moment to act decisively to shape not only his destiny, but the destiny of the ranch. As the stars blinked into life outside, Jace felt more alive than he ever had. He was ready. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.